Okay, here we go. Hi everyone, welcome to 2020 APAC Groundbreakers Virtual Tour by APAC OEC. This year, our event would be the biggest one ever done with 174 sessions, including normal sessions, workshops, and hands-on labs. From 123 different speakers over 11 days. Also, it would cover sessions on 4 different languages. Please remember to register as many sessions as you can, and all sessions would be available to replay as many times you want for 2 weeks after the initial date and time. You can also interact with the speaker at any time during the 2 weeks by posting questions and comments directly to the playback page. And here are our sponsors. And thanks to all Oracle user groups, Java user groups, and also our sponsors, Groundbreakers and the Cloud DB. And with that, we have today Sin Scott
Sean.
presenting on hey, auto upgrade myths and methods. Shan. Yeah, so anytime if you need any questions or have any questions, please chat. Please put a question on the chat window or a question in the tab in the Zoom webinar link. And without any further delays, I would hand over it to the speaker. Thank you so much for your time in attending, and thanks you, Shan, as well. Thank you. And I'm leaving the share to you. Okay, go ahead.
All righty, there we go. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, it's all good.
All right, wonderful. Well, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and thank you everybody for attending today, and especially the organizers of the conference for all the effort that goes into putting together an event like this, and especially for thanking or inviting me to come and talk to you about Oracle's Auto Upgrade tool. Real briefly about me, I've been working with Oracle technologies for about 25 years or so now. I'm on the board of the Utah Oracle User Group here in the United States and the RAC Special Interest Group. And I presented at Open World and Collaborate and regional user groups here in the US and Canada. I'm coming to you from the northwest corner of the United States in Boise, Idaho, if you're familiar with that area. I am a principal consultant with Viscosity North America, and Viscosity is a full-service Oracle Platinum partner. We're the 2019 Oracle Database Appliance Partner of the Year. And most of what I do is help customers with rack and MAA architectures, engineered systems, diagnostic tools. I do a lot of automation and so forth. I have a real deep background as an operational DBA and reliability engineer, and I really like to do automation and so forth. I'm also an Oracle ACE, and if you are not familiar with the ACE program, it recognizes members of the Oracle community for their technical contributions to Oracle. And if you or somebody you know is active as a presenter, as a blogger, or especially somebody who works behind the scenes in a user group such as this to put on events, I really encourage you to nominate them or nominate yourself. And you can do that right here at this acenomination.oracle.com. I want to talk for just a couple of moments to discuss why upgrading should be on your to-do list, particularly if you're running 11G or 12C. The first, of course, is that 11G was released in 2009, and that doesn't seem like a long time ago, or maybe it seems like a really, really long time ago. But to put that into perspective, in 2009, we had the iPhone 3S. We introduced the Bing search engine, and MySpace was the leading social media site, at least until May of that year when Facebook overtook MySpace. And looking back, I think that if Tom had been working on user experience instead of catching the latest Star Trek movie, it might have been a different story for us all. For 12CR1, that was 2013. And we also in that year learned what the Fox says. You're welcome. You're going to be humming this song all night now, aren't you? We added twerk and selfie to the dictionary and celebrated the epic finale of the Hangover trilogy. To be honest, I didn't know there was a third Hangover film, or that it was an epic trilogy, or even that it was the best comedy of 2013 when it was qualified as the live action comedy released in the 3-month window between 2 Melissa McCarthy films. All joking aside, cars and movies grow into classics, but software does not always age well, especially when it comes to security and compatibility with newer technologies. So if you're familiar with this chart, this is just showing you that 19C is the preferred target for Oracle. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time there. Also mention that Oracle is strongly recommending customers upgrade to Oracle Database 19C. I'm sure that I am preaching to the choir here and that you have probably all seen and heard this before, but Oracle 19C is the new 11.204. So hopefully you're on board with the idea of upgrading to the latest and greatest release, and now you're just trying to figure out the best way to do it. And for a lot of us, upgrades are infrequent events. And if that's the case, I have really great news for you, and I have terrible, awful news for you. And that is that your options are much broader now than they were 5, 10, or 12 years ago. But that's the problem. There are so many options available to you. And so many, it may even be a bit confusing or frightening because upgrades are scary. And to compound those fears, we have all of these changes that have been made to the Oracle database, like container and pluggable databases. Multi-tenancy is a potential complication, and it can add not just technical issues for us, but licensing issues. So when we talk about how to upgrade, we want to know what's the best tool, what tool do we want to use, what's right for your environment and the unique challenges that you face. What's going to work best with the peculiarities of your systems and your users and your applications, the customizations that you have going on in your environment, your particular corner cases. And obviously, because I'm doing this presentation, I think that the answer is AutoUpgrade. So let me convince you. If I were going to design an ideal upgrade tool, it probably wouldn't be very different from nearly anything else that I use in a database environment. I want something that allows me to repeat processes across environments. I want something that's configurable, where I'm not reconfiguring it every single time. I want something that's really hands-off because I don't want to have to be running manual commands late at night or earlier in the morning when that upgrade window comes by. I want it to be as automated as possible. I want it to do good logging. I want it to have some different operational modes, all the way from a non-destructive analysis all the way through actual deployment, all in that one tool. I want something that's resumable, that's as self-healing as possible, that's durable, that's going to provide some default protection for our data. It has some built-in intelligence. And in a perfect world, it should be included in my license and supported by the vendor and fast. So here are some of the tools that are available to you. And I'm going to skip down to the last two because really these are the two that I want to talk about here in terms of the tools that I use frequently or that I've used frequently over the last couple of years in doing a few dozen database upgrades. This is sort of my objective grading system for each of these. And we can argue about the good and the bad here, but really that DBUA, the Database Upgrade Assistant in silent mode, and AutoUpgrade are the ones that check all of the boxes. And if you have issues with any of the it doesn't do this or it might do this things, feel free to ping me separately. But this is the criteria I picked for my presentation to prove to you that that AutoUpgrade is the tool that you want to be using. So comparing AutoUpgrade and the Database Upgrade Assistant, a lot of them have about the same number. I've used them both about the same number of times for upgrading from 11.204 and 12.1 and 12.2 databases up to 19C. And through that experience, I've made some observations. I have some preferences. And a couple of the things that I want to point out to you are some of these differences and niceties between the two of them. First is that Database Upgrade Assistant runs command line parameters for things like the database name, parallelism, and so forth. AutoUpgrade wraps all of that into a configuration file for us. So you need to still specify a few things when you call AutoUpgrade, but it's a smaller trimmer command. That's not a really big deal. I think everything beyond this becomes a big deal. And the first is the resumability. So if the Database Upgrade Assistant, if that fails mid-upgrade, you need to do a little bit of detective work to figure out just where it was when it failed. Then you need to fix that problem manually and restart the upgrade. And you have to be kind of particular about how you restart the upgrade by telling it what phase. And if you're in a multi-tenant environment, you have to tell it the pluggable database it was running against and so forth. So you have to reconstruct a new command to do that. With AutoUpgrade, and I think this is one of the coolest things about AutoUpgrade, all you do is resume the job. After it fails and it says, hey, I've got a problem, you go out and you do the manual fix. You come back and you just say, all right, start again. And it picks right up where it was when it failed. Both of these tools have some in-flight error correction built into them, and both of them are good. However, I have run into a couple of really, I would call them weird scenarios where Database Upgrade Assistant went into this lengthy retry loop where it couldn't fix the problem and it couldn't self-resolve itself. And eventually it died. But in the meantime, it sat there and it ran for probably, I think in one of these cases, it ran for about 2 hours before it finally failed. That same scenario, when I ran it with AutoUpgrade, it was able to detect that problem and either fix that problem automatically, or it recognized immediately that a human needed to get in there after the first failure. And I've also seen a couple of situations where AutoUpgrade identified that problem in the pre-checks where the Database Upgrade Assistant didn't. And yes, these are likely corner cases that most people I don't think are going to encounter, but it does suggest that the capabilities of AutoUpgrade are maybe a little bit more extensive. Both of these tools are going to create a guaranteed restore point for you, but it's the default for AutoUpgrade, as are the pre-upgrade and post-upgrade tasks that are run as part of AutoUpgrade. With Database Upgrade Assistant, you need to call those out as specific separate steps. A thing that you can do with the Upgrade Assistant that you can't do with AutoUpgrade is upgrade a database in no archive log mode. And that's because with AutoUpgrade, it creates a guaranteed restore point and it expects it to be in archive log mode. It's able to do some recovery that DBUA doesn't in this case. So this is going to impact you if you're running a pre-production environment in no archive log mode. But I think that for the most part, that's probably something that's not going to be a big issue for most of us. What I will say, though, for AutoUpgrade is that its logs and its feedback are great. It seems to be, to me, it has more meaningful verbosity. I've had some DBUA upgrades where it just sat for a really long time with no feedback. And so you're kind of scrolling through the logs, looking to see whether or not something's actually running. And in those cases with the Upgrade Assistant, there wasn't anything going on in the alert log. It was just sitting there. It was doing some lengthy processes and so forth, but it just wasn't giving me any kind of feedback. The same scenario with AutoUpgrade produced some regular feedback that just reassured me that it was running. Both are going to give you equally inaccurate percent complete updates, but overall, I think that the diagnostics that AutoUpgrade produces are more navigable and cleaner. I have a question here. Can you use a pre-created guaranteed restore point? Did I call it a global restore point a moment ago. I think I might have. Can you use a pre-created guaranteed restore point? I don't know if you can. I think that you have to use the guaranteed restore point that is part of the auto upgrade process itself, but I'll take a look at that for you, Michael. All right, moving on. Between the two tools, between Upgrade Assistant and Auto Upgrade, you're really not going to go wrong with either one of them. They're both great tools. Just in my experience, the upgrades that I've done with Auto Upgrade have just been better, and not marginally better, better enough that I gravitate toward Auto Upgrade at every opportunity now. Now, I do want to hit on a couple of the misconceptions that I've heard and maybe correct the record. We've been running, my company has been running some 19C upgrade workshops recently. We had a few attendees that have remarked on different things about Auto Upgrade. And people have said, oh, no, it's only for large environments. It's difficult to configure unless you've got a whole bunch of databases. You're really limited in the types of upgrades that you can use, and it's hard to use, and it's slow, and you have to go to multi-tenant. Yeah, all of that is wrong. You can use it to upgrade one database. You can use it to upgrade 100. You can configure it just as easily for one database as you can for 10 or dozens or hundreds. You're not any more limited than you are with any other upgrade tool like the Upgrade Assistant, for example. It's easy to use. It's just as fast as anything else, and you don't have to go to multi-tenant. However, it is not particularly rack friendly, although that is something that the Auto Upgrade team is working on. How do we get this tool now that you're so convinced that Auto Upgrade is what you want to use? It is included with Oracle 19.3 and newer. It's part of the Oracle Home, so it's there in Oracle Home RDBMS admin. It is downloadable. I would suggest that you always download the latest version of the Auto Upgrade tool, and this is the MOS note number that you would go to retrieve it. There's no extra license required for it. It requires Java 8, but you can use the Java 8 that is part of a 19C Oracle Home just fine. And it's really pretty lightweight. It's a 4 meg jar file. So let's get our hands a little bit dirty and take a look at some auto upgrading. What do you say? This is the command that you run to run AutoUpgrade. And that's it. That upgrades a database. So we are done early. Any questions? Anyone? Anyone? Well, how about the question, how can something that simple do everything I need? Well, let's take a look at a couple features of Auto Upgrade. And the first are its modes. It has 4 modes. And if we go back here and we take a look, we see this mode of deploy. That's one of the modes. But we have a couple, 3 other modes as well. We have an analyze mode. Analyze goes and does a read-only analysis of a database. It's a non-destructive process, and it's going to go out and it's going to identify any issues and report those issues for you so that then you can fix them manually. And some of the things that you might want to do in a database upgrade, some of the things that you need to fix may be things that you need to fix days or weeks or even months in advance as it's convenient. The next thing is the fix-up mode, and it does just what it sounds like it does. It fixes the issues that don't require some sort of human intervention, and then it'll also identify for you what you, as the human, the DBA, what you need to do to the database. A really good example of a manual fix is the recovery file destination size. This is probably the thing that more auto upgrades fail on than anything else, I think. It would be really easy for the tool to go in there and increase that value if it's too small. I mean, it's not like we need to shut down the database and start it back up or anything like that to change the recovery file destination size. But it could have consequences if we're just going out and increasing the size of that recovery file destination on a file system. So it expects us to go out there and make an intelligent decision about how big to make it and where to put it and things like that. So that's a manual fix that you have to do. The next mode is the upgrade mode. And you're probably thinking, well, why is there an upgrade mode and a deploy mode? Well, upgrade is primarily used when you're running an upgrade as part of a migration. And in this case, you would be running the analyze step and the fix up step from AutoUpgrade on a source machine. And then you would run it in upgrade mode on the target host. So in a sense, it's almost like doing an Aura check or something like that, and doing a pre-upgrade check or a pre-install check on a brand new system. This upgrade mode goes out and it's going to perform some of its work on the new system. And in the case of an upgrade, it doesn't create a guaranteed restore point, because that would be back on the source database. Remember, we're running this on the new or on the target database. And it doesn't perform the post-upgrade actions, since it doesn't know what they are, because those post-upgrade actions get identified at the source. And so this is an example of where you might use AutoUpgrade as part of a combined strategy where you're using more than one tool to accomplish the parts of a migration and an upgrade both. But the final mode here is the deploy step. And this is the step that does everything. So deploy goes out and it runs all of the pre-upgrade steps. It runs all of those pre-upgrade checks. It does any fix-ups that need to be performed if it's an automated fix-up. It's going to create the guaranteed restore point. Going to run the pre-upgrade fixes. Sorry, I said before that it runs the pre-upgrade fixes. It only does those fixes after creating the guaranteed restore point. And I think, Michael, this may address your question whether or not you can use a pre-created guaranteed restore point. You may not be able to, because it wants to have this guaranteed restore point in place right before it runs the fixes, so that it can roll those back if it needs to. After it runs those pre-upgrade fixes, it's going to drain load. Then it's going to upgrade the database and then run all of the post-upgrade steps and fixes and actions that it needs to do. So with AutoUpgrade, we have a configuration file, and in the advertisement, in the description of this session, I said I would show you how to create a configuration in under a minute. And this is one way to do it. AutoUpgrade will generate a sample configuration for you. And I want to note for you that most of the commands that I'm showing in this presentation are shortened or simplified just to exclude paths. So realistically here, you would have a path to your Java, you'd have a path to the AutoUpgrade jar file, and a path to your configuration file. So just a little simplified. Here is another way of generating a configuration file, and you would just change what you need in the script and copy paste it. Now, I pointed out to you that the AutoUpgrade command is very, very simple, and I covered those 4 nodes. The simplicity of that command is enabled by the power and the flexibility that's built into the configuration. So I want to take a couple of moments to dig into that just a little bit. First thing you'll notice, this configuration has global and local parameters. Global parameters are going to apply to every upgrade that uses this configuration file. The log file is a good example of that. Your target home and your version might be another. If you're going to upgrade a bunch of databases, they're all going to have the same home. They're all going to have the same target version. Local or individual parameters are going to be specific to individual databases. And these are parameters that we're going to define, maybe like a host name or a SID, things like that, that are unique to an individual database. Now, there are some parameters that can't be global, some that can't be local, some that can be global or local, and some that can be set globally and overridden locally. I hope that was confusing. So even if you're only upgrading one database, you're still going to have at least one global parameter, and that's the log directory. Then you'll have some local parameters. So if that was confusing, hopefully I will be able to clear it up for you with some examples. This is an example of a configuration for just one database. And in this case, I added the target version and the target home directory as global values right here. So this is an example of, I know that I have a bunch of databases I'm going to upgrade to 19.8. They're all going to have the same home. Why define that multiple times? I can just set those as global parameters. Down here, I have some local parameters, and I'm going to tell AutoUpgrade that I do not want it to run utlrp to do unit compilation on objects. Maybe I've already taken care of that as one of my own personal pre-checks. utlrp takes a fair amount of time, a few minutes usually to run in an environment. Maybe I want to cut that out. I've already taken care of that. I'm also telling it that I want to run the time zone upgrade. I'm telling it the name of the node that I want, my log directory and my source home and so forth. Now, what if I have a bunch of databases that are all very, very similar or identical, and I have one database that's an outlier? Well, parameters can handle that for you. We can set some global parameters for our home and our version. And then I can override those for individual databases. Now, when I run AutoUpgrade, it's going to compare the node and the SID in each database section, this being a database section here, database 1, and this being another database section, database 10. It's going to go here and it's going to say, I've got database 1 here, and its node is whatever my host name is, and the SID matches and so forth. So I know that all these parameters go together. And then I have this one database here, database 10. This is my outlier. I've got a different target version for that. I have a different Oracle home for that database. So where all of my databases, database 1 through 9, could all take advantage of these global parameters, my single outlier can still use the same configuration file, and I can override those values. What if we want to add or remove init parameters from our environment during the upgrade? Well, we can do that. We have this capability of doing global additions of initialization parameters. And we can also add parameters and remove parameters before and during and after the upgrade. And these are just files that look just like a regular parameter file. It's just a parameter equals and a value. And we list those one per line without a value. So to add parameters, we reference that parameter file formatted the same as we would a regular init.sid or init.sid.ora file. To remove parameters, all we have to do is list them one per line in a file. We don't need a value or an equal sign or anything like that. So you're probably thinking, well, one of the things that we do in an upgrade is we remove all of those underscore parameters. Do I have to go in and manually put all of those underscore parameters that I want to remove into a file? Good question. No, you do not. You can set this global remove underscore parameters to yes, and AutoUpgrade will do that automatically for you. Well, AutoUpgrade sounds really great. So maybe I've got to run a whole bunch of scripts as part of my upgrade to do things. Gosh, I really wish that it would run those scripts for me, because we've all got scripts, right? Guess what? Before, after, you can do both. In Linux, these are going to be shell scripts with a .sh suffix. In Windows, these are batch scripts with either a .cmd or a .bat suffix, or a PowerShell script with a .ps1 suffix. So we can run pre-upgrade scripts and post-upgrade scripts that are custom to our particular environment as part of our upgrade. So We've got a lot of power in AutoUpgrade as far as configurations go. But one of the really, really nice, wonderful, amazing things about AutoUpgrade is its console. AutoUpgrade does not disappoint when it comes to command and control. By the way, AutoUpgrade doesn't require you to set or unset anything at all in your shell. So you can run this tool without having to worry about what your environment is set up as beyond the obvious path settings. When you run AutoUpgrade, by default, it's going to drop you into an interactive console. And the first time I used AutoUpgrade, it surprised me a little bit because I got a prompt at this console, just like you see here, this little UPG prompt. I wasn't expecting a prompt. I was expecting it to do stuff for me. I was expecting it to be automatic. And the prompt really felt not very automatic. It felt interactive. And I thought, well, I did something wrong. Good thing that this is just a little test database in a local environment. But fortunately, I noticed it had a help feature. So I thought, I'll use that to see if I can figure out what I broke. And before I had a chance to do anything, boom, it finished. So this console that you get dropped into is an interactive session that is also an automatic session. So it's going to provide you some feedback on the upgrade process as things update. And at the same time, it lets you go in and enter commands and monitor and manage jobs and so forth. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, although I will admit at first it was a little bit confusing. Now, if you don't want that, you can run AutoUpgrade without a console. There's a flag that you specify on the AutoUpgrade command line called -no console. But personally, I think that the console is a really nice feature to have, especially as you're starting to use AutoUpgrade. So let's take a look at some of the commands that you have available. This is all just directly out of the help dialog that you get from the AutoUpgrade command line. I'm going to talk about a couple that you'll probably use more than anything else. The first is LSJ, and LSJ lists jobs. The second is logs. Logs is going to show you where the logs are for each job on your system. Every time you run an AutoUpgrade command, it's going to create a new job or job ID. And so you're never going to have to worry about overwriting logs or anything like that. The next command is the status command, and that's going to give you information on the current state of a job, including what stage of the upgrade it's in, how long various steps have taken, and so forth. The console is also where you can manage your upgrade jobs, including aborting and resuming jobs, and even restoring databases. I want to take just a moment and talk about the abort command. If you're like me, you associate shutdown abort with a dramatic, we're going to kill this database kind of thing. And so when I think of aborting a process, I don't typically think of it being resumable. This in AutoUpgrade abort is really more of a stop command. You can use the abort command to stop or to pause a job if you'd like, after which you can either restore the database associated with that job to its pre-upgrade step. Like I said, we can do that restore -job, and it's going to take it back to wherever it was prior to the upgrade for you. Or you can just simply resume the job. And the same holds true if a job fails for some reason. A good example is if you ignored a manual pre-upgrade requirement. AutoUpgrade is going to run, it's going to hit that issue that was not resolved. It will stop, it'll fail at that point. It'll give you a message and say, I can't go on, I need you to fix this thing. And once you have performed that manual fix, you can just resume the job with the resume-job number. And I'll show you that in just a second here. We saw that the console offers you some information about your AutoUpgrade jobs, but the most complete picture of things is in the logs. So one of the big differences between AutoUpgrade and the database upgrade assistant is how they log information. DBUA places all of its files in the Oracle base directory, and you can recall we set the location of AutoUpgrade Logs when we created the configuration file, so we've got a little flexibility there. But when we navigate to the AutoUpgrade log location, we'll see this really nicely structured set of directories. And there's a directory for each database. In this database, I have in this directory, I have a database called VNA. And then I have a subdirectory for each job. So the first job you run is going to be job 100. And these are going to be all the logs associated with that. Really nicely formatted, very nicely laid out. Every job, again, is going to produce a new job number and a new subdirectory for its logs. So we're never overwriting anything, nothing destructive taking place here. Under this pre-checks directory here, you'll see that we have an HTML file. That's going to give us a really nice, concise view of results for us to act on. So we'll be able to pull that up, and it gives us a very nicely formatted report if you want to take a look at that. And then with this pre-check job, there's a pre-check subdirectory. The same occurs with a deployed job. There are additional directories for each of the steps that occur for session drain, for upgrade and post-upgrade steps, and so forth. So here is sort of an abridged look at the set of logs that you would see from a deployment. Again, really well organized, meaningful names, reports available for us in text and HTML format. I've got a question here. Is there an internal table to monitor the progress of the database upgrade? No, there's not a table that exists, at least not that I'm aware of. All of this is logged outside of the database. And I think that's probably because we'll be shutting the database down and starting it and so forth. And so there's the potential that we could lose something if we were writing to the database. As far as I know, everything is written to log files for us. So let's take a quick little walk through. I just want to give you a peek at the database upgrade, the auto upgrade tool, so you can see what it looks like and see how flexible it is to you. I do have a question here from somebody asking, what does the drain step do? Drain is going to make sure that your sessions that are connected to your database are terminated cleanly and smoothly, and those sessions drain off of the system. So I have for you here, this is an upgrade job that I have running on a local system here. This is just a Docker system. And you can see I issued this lsj command to list my jobs, and I've got job number 104. It's running on a database called DBUA, and it was in the prefix up step. And I aborted that job a couple hours ago. And now I want to resume that job. So I'm going to resume it here. And I can do stuff like this. I can type status, and I can see what the state of my job is and so forth. And I can do lsj and see all of this neat stuff. But here's the really neat thing. You can run a simple Python web server against the auto upgrade directory, and this will run and it will update continuously. So one of the things that I would really encourage you to do is to involve your stakeholders in the upgrade process and give them a link like this so that they can step in and take a look at things, and maybe to a certain extent get off your back and not bother you about what's the status of the upgrade and so forth. But this is going to give them some visibility into things, and this sort of visibility and cooperation that you offer to your stakeholders really, I feel, goes a long way toward building trust and communication with those stakeholders in your environment. So quick little demo there. Again, here's how you can monitor the status. We'll just go into that Oracle base, or I'm sorry, into your auto upgrade directory and run this simple HTTP server from Python. And then you can view that page from that, that web address. Real quickly, I normally have a really, really long checklist of things that I do leading up to, during, and after an upgrade or database migration. And it feels like every upgrade I do, a few new things get added based on some unique aspect of the environment. So I wanted to give you a short list of things to think about as you get ready for an upgrade. For AutoUpgrade itself, I mentioned before the DB recovery file dest size and DB recovery file dest are probably the two biggest things that your AutoUpgrade is going to fail on. This is a manual fix, and you want to make sure that it's big enough and that you have enough free space. If the recommendation is to give it 15 gig or 25 gig or something like that, my advice, add just a little bit, maybe bump it up by 10% or so, just so that you're not running razor thin on anything. My next recommendation is run things in analyze mode, review the output, then do as much as you can as far ahead of your upgrade as you possibly can while the database is live. And that includes compiling objects, gathering statistics, emptying the recycle bin, and then just go through an iterative process of repeat and analyze, or repeating that analyze step and working that exception list down until it's reduced to just the things that can only be done during the upgrade itself. And that is going to save you some time and some effort during the upgrade outage itself. If you're migrating, run analyze and fix ups on the source, run upgrade on the target. I can't emphasize for you enough how important it is to practice your upgrades. I've got a whole other presentation on that, so I'm not going to go into depths on that. But if you are dealing with something that is unfamiliar with you or unfamiliar to you in the midst of an upgrade, and and something goes wrong, if you don't know that tool, if you don't know where the logs are, if you don't know how to fix it, how to resume it, how to do all the things that you would need to do, it's going to make your evening or your day a lot harder than it would have to be. So get in there and do that practice. Just some things that you might consider for any upgrade. This is more general advice. Increase your AWR retention, obviously backup files, profile your IO and CPU loads, run OraCheck. There's no harm in having multiple looks at your data and what recommendations are available to you. So you can run a Database Upgrade Assistant, if you're not familiar, has a pre-upgrade check that it runs, as well as the AutoUpgrade tools. So go ahead and run them both. There's no harm in it. Check for your obsolete features, Apex and streams. Remove anything that's unused, demo schemas, any unused features. Go in and check your scheduler jobs. One thing you can do is with 19C, how wallets are handled is a little bit different. I've had a couple of situations where some weird things with access control lists did not work quite the same way with access control entries. And if you're curious about that, feel free to shoot me an email and we can talk about that separately. Review your optimizer changes. What changes in the new optimizer versus the old one. Know how to turn things on and off as far as feature or optimizer features go. And again, practice. Here are a couple other opportunities for you. These are more procedural, reviewing your documentation, making sure that everything works correctly. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that a backup does not guarantee that you can recover your database. This is a great time for you to change credentials and so forth. And with that, we are done. Does anybody have any questions? I have another question here. Have you encountered when FRA is 100% full and how to handle? Yeah, add space. Add space to FRA. I've never had a situation where I ran out of recovery space during an upgrade. And I think that was because the recovery file destination, AutoUpgrade is so picky about that particular parameter. I'm not mentioning it repeatedly for no reason. It is something that that AutoUpgrade is really picky about, and it will fail. Will cause, I think, most auto upgrades that I've seen that have failed on that, if nothing else. So, any other questions? Well, if not, for some more information, Mike Dietrich's site his blog is just a fantastic gold mine of information about auto upgrades. So I really highly recommend subscribing to his blog and going out and checking what he has to say. It's just a constant stream of wonderful little nuggets about auto upgrade and upgrades in general. And here are links to some of the different tools that are available to you, the pre-upgrade jar and the auto upgrade tool itself. And since I offered to have folks reach out to me if you do have any questions, this is all my contact information. So like I said, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or send me an email with any questions or comments that you might have, and I am more than happy to answer those for you. I think I'm 1 minute over.
Yep, no props, and we're all on dot. That's a great session, and so thank you very much, and thanks for your time, and thanks to all the participants as well. So please ensure you have registered the other sessions also. Thank you, sir, so much.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks everyone for attending.
See you again. Bye bye.